Here's the secret to using Kundalini Yoga as a therapy from a yoga therapist. Hi, everybody. Salimah here. Welcome to YogaVision Online. I'm so glad you're here. You probably have heard me introduce myself as a yoga therapist. And many of you have asked, what is yoga therapy? How does it work? Where does it come from? And how is it connected to Kundalini Yoga? So let me answer all of those questions for you today. And this is going to be more of a talking video, so you can hit the ×2 button if you want to hear it a little faster. But I think it's really important to know so that you can really leverage your experience with Kundalini Yoga and know that it can help you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in all the ways that we show up as human and need a little affirmation, confirmation, and a little nudge in a new direction. So if you made it here, it's because you found Kundalini Yoga to be helpful. And I think that's amazing. And many of you have explored this channel by trying a different practice every single day, which is great, perfect, good way to start. The second is that you probably heard me say, try out a practice for 40 days and see what it brings you. And that's already stepping into this realm called yoga therapy. And that is to practice a very specific kriya or meditation or breath work or mantra for a specific amount of time to really draw out the lessons, to change the neural pathways in your brain, and then also to start to see those changes happen in the 3D reality in our day-to-day lives. And so let's go down and now and drill into how that whole process takes place, how I do it, and then what you can learn from that approach. So first of all, Kundalini Yoga, as I mentioned before, is a therapeutic form of yoga. If you know what it is you want to adjust or to sort out or to learn more about or to heal or to expand, then this is a perfect practice because there are very specific things that can happen through a Kundalini Yoga practice. So that's the first thing. All of Kundalini Yoga is very prescriptive. Kundalini Yoga for trust, for courage, for prosperity. Kundalini Yoga for the unknown cause of illness, for PTSD, for anxiety, and everything in between. So you know from the titles that all of these practices, these kriyas, have a very specific kind of effect. So if you know what's bothering you, you can find a solution. But then we can get even more defined from there. And that is to think about it as an applied science. And part of that applied science is to think about, well, how do we know that that's going on? How do I know I'm lacking trust? How do I know that I need a little zhuzh in my brain so that anxiety doesn't take over? How do I know those things? And that comes from a diagnostic tool. For most of us, our diagnosis comes from, I'm noticing myself, I'm seeing what my patterns are, and this is what I think I need. And that's amazing for a start. The secondary approach is to take on a numerology consult. And you've seen me talk about that as well. A numerology consult is looking at your date of birth to understand why your soul came to be here. What are the ways that you open doors? What are the major life lessons that you're going to need to be aware of, and what you're going to be circling back to over and over and over again in your life? And how do you accelerate that learning process? The third question that numerology answers is, what are my gifts? What am I really talented and good at? And how can I do that more so that I can open up more opportunities? Question number 4 that it answers is, what is my life purpose? What did I come here to do? How am I going to do that? And then finally, how do I transform my life? What's my lever that I can pull so that I can move myself out of a stuck moment, so I can expand into this next layer or level of my learning? And all of that comes from numerology. And that's why they're explicitly tied together. So when you're thinking about Kundalini Yoga as a therapy, the next place you can think about is, what does my numerology say about who I am? And how can I recognize all of that information and put it together so that I can pick So I can pick a specific kind of kriya, meditation, mantra, or breath work in order to expand this understanding that I'm stepping into. And that's where I come in, yoga therapist. And some of you might be thinking, how did you come to be a yoga therapist? And so that started with the journey of teacher training, 300 hours in Kundalini Yoga and Hatha training, multiple other trainings in breath work, mantra. In the last 4 years in particular, lots of study of the nervous system, anatomy, how the brain works, particularly in relationship with trauma. How does the vagus nerve work? How does the nervous system work? And coupled with a designation as a yoga therapist, 3,000 hours of training with my teacher, and then the counseling certification. So all of those different experiences bundled together allow me to address those things. And in particular, how the nervous system works. And almost every single phone call or Zoom call where we're in a therapeutic connection, part of that is explaining how the body works so that we can have a sense of assuredness that everything is actually working the way that it needs to be, and that we can make small adjustments in our practice, in our thinking, in our heart space, in order to take our next steps for spiritual and healing journey. So that's a little bit more about how I came to be a yoga therapist. So as an applied science, what happens is you book your numerology consult. We get together on Zoom. First few minutes is very informal. We're saying hello. We're trying to get to know each other, get a vibe of what's going on and how I can best help. That's how I operate, very intuitively, experientially, looking for what does this person want to say to me? And what is the root cause? What's the motivator here? And when we're in session together, it's all about you. What is it that you want to learn? What is it you're learning about your stuck moments? Where is the expansion? And so you get to be the one driving that conversation. And that's amazing because what you say, what you don't say, and how you hold your body and tone of voice you use and what you choose to share, all of that goes into the data, I guess you could say, the data that allows me a little perspective on what you're coming through. And then we can find the exact kriya, meditation, breath work, mantra that's going to do that thing that you most want it to do. And that's how Kundalini Yoga as a therapy works. So numerology becomes the diagnostic tool. And in that consultation, the listening, the learning, the aha moments, the tears that come out, the joy, the laughter, the self-recognition, the acknowledgement from somebody who's external and only looking at the numbers allows some blind spots to unfold, allows the what is unspoken to be finally said. And then we can really move into a therapeutic relationship. So from there, after that first session's done, you get a whole bunch of things, a book recommendation, here's some mantras to listen to, here's a kriya, here is some things to think about your numerology. And from there, for many people, that's where it stops, that's where it ends. And for many more, there is an opportunity to look into that a little further. And I think what we're starting to learn collectively is that I can't just go everywhere with my mind. We can't just be neck up about how we do everything because the mind is deceiving. The mind is highly influenceable by the past. And the mind alone doesn't drive the boat. The body is here, the emotions are here, and our connection to all, to the oneness, to hope, to faith, those are all parts of the healing journey. And so a therapeutic approach that takes a full and holistic understanding of who you are is, in my opinion, one that is more accurate and gives a lot more long-term impacts. And so that's what we're starting to see is that more and more people are starting to pursue body-based therapies. You might have heard this described as somatic therapy. And somatic just means of the body. And you probably know this already, but yoga and meditation and breath work and sound healing, all of that is of the body. It is meant to, in some ways, bypass the literal, critical, analytical mind and move into the deeper resources and recesses of who we are. Waking up soul memory, waking up cellular memory, releasing stuff that's in our tissues. And that's the amazing piece, is that once we release that stuff, it's almost like we have cleared the slate, cleaned the windows, and we can see everything around us with much more clarity. And once you see that thing, once you see the truth of who you are, you can't unsee it. And it's much harder to control a person like that. It's much harder to force that kind of person who is awake into situations that, number one, they don't want to be in, number two, that isn't suitable for the collective, and number three, is invasive to our sense of self. And so that becomes your new starting spot, is somebody with insight, somebody with full understanding of the completeness of being alive, not just what's happening in the mind, but what's happening in the heart and the spirit. And how do we allow those strengths and those lessons to serve us in our lives, to be more experienced and more wise about how we approach things, rather than just completing the same patterns over and over again and wondering, hey, when is this ever going to end? And so part of yoga therapy is, I think, number one, intuitive. It's an intuitive drive from your part. Yes, this is what I want. Yes, it's me understanding where you're coming from. Number two, it's experience. You know yourself best. You know what the next step is. And if reaching into your soul is something that you really want to do, and you want to hear what your infinite self wants to say about who you are. And then finally, to really validate all the things that you've been thinking and feeling about yourself through a neutral perspective. And a way to move forward that uses Kundalini Yoga, because that's the basis of the practice of numerology. It's still effective if you have never done Kundalini Yoga before, but having a little grounding here in this practice allows you to see all the connections, and then really then take that knowledge and resources and then pick wisely your kriyas and meditations. So in a nutshell, that's how yoga therapy works. I'm surprised at myself for not bringing this to you a little earlier, but here it is, and probably the perfect timing. Whoever needs to see this will see it. If you're looking for more information on how to book a consult, a little bit more about numerology, there's a couple of ways to do that. Number one, you can book a consult with me. That's 60 minutes, you and I sitting down talking about your favorite topic. And then I give you a summary and a rundown and a whole bunch of resources that you can dive into after our call. Number two is to consider a digital package, which is called Transform at Home. It's an all access digital pass. And that pass will give you a whole rundown on numerology. So it's much more self-learning based, but you'll see all the different aspects of your numerology. You'll be able to do some simple calculations and then really understand how you can apply Kundalini Yoga to support you. So lots of different options, many different ways to stay connected. If you found this helpful, insightful, please drop a comment below. Tell me where and how this popped into your feed. Tell me what you found interesting. Tell me where you live and how long you've been practicing with me. I love to know all of those things. And until next time, lots of love to you. My name is Salimah, yoga therapist. Bye for now.